Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Joanne Smedley, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Squadron Leader Stacey Davids. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in the singing of the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal John Wallace Walder. John Walder was born in 1889 to James and Sarah Walder. His father came to Australia from London in the early 1870s to work on railway construction in Tasmania, but finding himself unsuited to the work, moved to the mainland, married, and brought up a large family on a property near Watcham in Victoria. John was born in nearby Donald and attended school in Watcham West. When he was 5 years old, his family suffered a tragic house fire in which his elder brother David was severely burnt, dying later that day. However, thanks to his father's efforts, 11 Walder children and their mother safely escaped. John Walder went on to become a farmer like his father, and in May 1915 became the third member of the Walder family to enlist in the Australian Imperial Force, following in the footsteps of his brothers Alexander and Llewellyn. A fourth brother, Harry, would enlist in November 1916. Unlike Alexander and Llewellyn, who were posted to the 1st Pioneer Battalion, John Walder went into the 6th Battalion. He underwent a period of training in Australia before leaving Melbourne on the 26th of August 1915 on board the troop ship Anchises. Private Walder was first sent to Egypt, where he continued training. There he had some contact with his brother Alexander, who had just returned from Gallipoli. Alexander gleefully reported home that Jack had got quite stout on the job. Jack Walder arrived on the Gallipoli Peninsula in early November 1915. The major offences were long over by that time, but the peninsula continued to be a very dangerous place. Walder proved an able soldier, and shortly after his arrival on Gallipoli was promoted to Lance Corporal. A little over a week after his promotion, Lance Corporal Jack Walder was shot in the head, either by a sniper or a stray bullet. He was evacuated to hospital in Cairo with a fractured skull. As the Australians were being evacuated from Gallipoli, Lance Corporal Walder rallied, and word was sent to his family that he seemed to be getting better. Alexander wrote to his parents saying, "I hope and trust poor old Jack is on the improve. I have not heard any more than he was on the mend, so he may go right back to Australia or to England. It is to be hoped he does." 2 days after Christmas, Walder's condition deteriorated, and he was put back on the dangerously ill list. On the 8th of January 1916, he died of wounds sustained on the Gallipoli Peninsula. He was 26 years old. In Australia, his death was reported in the local newspaper in an article that said that Jack Walder was in the prime of early manhood and was brave and fearless as a soldier. He played his part in the war and lost a life which undoubtedly had a brilliant future. His lamentable death has seen the source of universal regret. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 Australians who died during the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal John Wallace Walder, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world. They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.